Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Elijah Dominguez. Today we're going to be talking about the U.S. government and human cloning, as well as manipulation of the genome and the human genome, and and cloning of human beings and how it is really possible. So today I want to be talking about this, and I'm making this video to let people know that it is humanly possible to clone an individual and clone a human being. I started doing studies after watching a video called on YouTube called Tom McDonald Clone Rappers. He said hair's different, eyes shifted, and I started looking at some pictures and was like, wait, that's weird. And I watched a movie called Hostel, which is about elitist. There's Hostels 1, Hostel 2, Hostel 3. I think the last one is about Vegas, and the other two are based in Germany. And the reason for this is because Germany is a stronghold for the elitist and for them to do these types of stuff. I saw a bass player who I believe he was from Sting, one of these 80 bands. I'll put it up. It was on TMZ. He said he had witnessed a um, he had witnessed a murder or a red room murder where elitists were paying money to do this. Now, from Hostel, people also do this, but this is done underground because they can't morally do things that would be frowned upon in normal everyday society. And so they do things like eat human flesh, fornicate, have sex with animals, um, you know, do all the stuff that is illegal that you should not be doing in a normal society because they can get away with it if they're underground. I mean, bases are in mountainsides, in the hills. There's actually, I located one of them in a desert. I'm not going to say where in the desert for safety reasons, but it's between the palm tree and there's a little oasis of water, and it's straight down into the earth. And these are where the elitists go and do these activities, such as the presidents and CEOs and all these famous people. Most of the famous people you see on television are not actual human beings like you and I. We're not actually cloned, or we don't know we have a clone. Everybody has a doppelganger. Um, but we have doubles and some of us have been cloned. I was doing research on the president George Bush Sr. and found out that he was actually cloned. He was in Tokyo, and I believe it was like '92, and he had an accident or an incident where he had fainted and blamed it on bad sushi. About 10 minutes later, he came back and made his address. Now, if you look closely at his characteristics and observe, he was a lot different from when he was first there. And he had freckles that he did not have originally while before leaving on that incident, which is interesting. And I also noticed this with our former president, Bill Clinton, 1996. Bill Clinton had a non-cancerous tumor in his neck, and he went in to have it removed. When he came back, he was different. Now, this was reported by the U.S. News and World Reporting in 1996, and this was on page, I believe, 22 of that article, where he had the picture of him with the tumor the non-cancerous tumor on his neck, and then he had the picture afterwards. Now, if you look at the picture afterwards, I have a picture from Globe News, where the individual appearance had changed. His nose was smaller, not because of surgery, because he got a nose job. No, his nose and his facial features had completely shifted from what he originally looked like. Look very carefully at the characteristics of Mr. Clinton. And this is an example of actual human cloning and manipulation of the genome, which occurred in 1945 originally after the Nazis were brought by the Central Intelligence Agency and the federal government through Operation Paperclip, which they ended up creating and getting funding in Argentina. Yes, he was in Argentina. But not just Adolf Hitler, but Joseph Mengele. Yes, that Joseph Mengele, the doctor of death, the death doctor. He was alive and kicking very well. Both doctors ended up going, Dr. Joseph Mengele ended up in California on a little naval base called China Lake Naval Base. And he ended up doing experiments and creating what is called MK Ultra, a mind control, brain controlled program to manipulate a person's mind. Now, this is where it gets interesting because Al Roker had froze up on television. There's no explanation why he froze up. They tried to do the whole mannequin phase thing to try to make it so they could not be exposed for the MK Ultra. People were not that stupid. I mean, it happened to Shaq. It happened to Jalen Rose, who was very famous during a championship game with Stephon Curry, which is very interesting. Another example of cloning would be the Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, Chrétien, who he speaks out of the side of his mouth like this, right? And he speaks out of one side of his mouth. I believe it's this side of his face, his right side of his face. Now, he was speaking out on this side of his face for a long time. After a while, he started speaking out of this side of his face. Now, if you ask any physician, that is technically impossible, even though, yes, he's been known for talking out the side of his face on this side. But he was talking out this side of his face and not this side of his face anymore, which he had completely changed, which is a very much technical impossibility, especially for given his age, and his life. This is very interesting. Now, I'll post everything up into the description there so you can see it for yourself. Then we have to look at Premier Golovich, who was the Russian president. Well, he went missing for 3 weeks. Where did he go? The Russians didn't have no explanation, no reason or logical explanation to why he just poof up and disappeared. Anybody who knows, he was gone for 3 weeks. Golovich is the one with the distinctive scar on his head, and the distinctive scar right here on the top of his head, which is actually, I think it's kind of cool. I would have loved to actually spoken with him and find out how he got the scar, but that's another story. But Golovich was a clone, a human clone, and he was cloned it took 3 weeks to clone a human being for him, because they had his DNA. Why do you think they take our DNA and they take the DNA and they put it into a database? So if they need it not just to keep us tracks of us on our DNA, but they're manipulating our geobiome and creating clones and creating other copies of us. Saw an interesting movie, but I can't quite remember the name. I'll look it up and try to find the movie where this guy was actually framed and they used a double of him or a clone of him. Could be a clone, could have been a double. I don't know. I don't quite remember the movie all that well, but goes on to show that he was committing crimes as him when it wasn't actually him. Now, I have an interesting story. Back in 2016, about in August, 2014 in August, I was walking down the street. I was feeding, because I feed the homeless. At that time, I was feeding and helping and talking with the homeless and, excuse me, taking care of the homeless individuals. And I was walking down. It was getting towards nightfall, about 6. Walk down, and I'm walking on the street, and the house window is adjacent to the street level, and so I could just turn to the right and see it. So I heard a flick, flick, flick. I turn, and who do I see? Myself. Now I'm in Martinez in Castro Street. This is a very well-known Masonic town for Masons and all that. Now, the Masons have gotten control of some of those programs. I'm not going to lie to you. I've done my studies. And I know it sounds incredible, this story. And you're thinking, this can't be true. What you're telling me can't be true, Eli. But it is. They're cloning human beings. Now, I go over. My first instinct is, I gotta go talk to him. I gotta go knock on the door. So I knock on the door. He answers, about 1 or 2 minutes, walking from the back room to the front room. And he answers, and I'm talking with him. I have my little Nokia flip phone. So it's a piece of shit. And I say, hey, no one's ever gonna believe this. You look just spot on like me. Except you're the better looking one, Kind of stroke the ego a little bit, right? And so I said, can I take a picture of it? He's like, sure. So I take a picture of it, take a little selfie. And I say, hey, you want to go get breakfast tomorrow about 10? He says, yeah, sure. Why not, Eli? He never told me his name. That's what was the weird part. Never told me what his name was. Now, I come back. I go to my house. It's about 8. I go lay down, go to bed. Wake up in the morning, bright and early, about 9. Get over there an hour early. Tell them, because it's going to be busy about 10. The little kitchen, kitchen over there, that is now, was on Marina Vista, but now is on Main. Gets busy at 10 o'clock, because people love that. That's fine. Great biscuits and gravy, great food there. Now, knock on the door, wait 5 minutes. Knock on the door again. Wait another 5 minutes. Okay, 10 minutes have gone by. It's now 9:40. Okay, I'm thinking, okay, it's still early. He's, probably getting ready, probably getting dressed, probably got a shower, probably still in the shower. So I wait another 10 minutes. Come back, knock on the door. Nobody answers. So I go back to the side of where his room was adjacent. It was empty. So I go in and look into the living room, and the living room is empty. The house is completely empty. The house has been moved. Now the neighbor comes out and says he moved out last night. Okay, but he was supposed to go have breakfast with me the following day. And he knew this because I wasn't supposed to physically find him. Now, I wondered if this could have been a parallel universe, as in time travelers, type things, but I thought that's an impossibility. Cloning is more likely. So someone had cloned me. I didn't know who. Now, months go by. It's April, and I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting in my living room. I'm sitting in the what's that called? I can't think of the lobby of this hotel. Now, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the pizza place across the way, and I'm wondering, okay, I'm thinking, well, I'm hungry. Should I go get a pizza? Guess who I see? Myself, again, walking down the fucking street. And I run to the door, to the elevator, and I'm pressing that button. I'm hitting that button like it's on fire. The elevator's not coming up fast enough, and he's moving down the street, and he's moving at a relatively slow pace. He's kind of like, you know, enjoying the weather. It's nice weather here in California. Nice weather here in California. So I bolt down the stairs, and I'm down the stairs. I'm running across the street, dodging traffic, and I said, "Hey, how's it going? You remember me?" He's like, "No." Okay, he don't remember me. I said, "You used to live on Castro Street. What happened?" He said, "I never lived on Castro Street." I said, "You know I know everybody in this town, right?" And he said, he doesn't say nothing. He just looks at me. I said, "I've never seen you before, but you look just like me. Can I take a picture of us again?" I totally lost that picture. Lying, of course. And he said, "No." Okay, so I respected him. I mean, I could have just took a picture of him and it wouldn't have been a problem because obviously I'm in public, but I'm not going to do that because it's disrespectful. Plus, if I got into a fist fight with myself, what are the cops going to say? "Eli, you're under arrest? Which one of us?" You know? So, he walks down the street. I'm following behind him. And he turns down the street right where it turns on to Henrietta, and he turns and goes towards the Masonic building. Now, he actually walked into the Masonic building, and I never saw him again. Never saw him again. I waited out there. I waited like 20, 30 minutes for him to come out. I literally surrounded the whole building. There's only 2 ways out that I know of in that building. The back door that leads to an alley, and another way that leads onto the main street. There's only 2 exits that I know of in that building. No way in hell he could have left that building without me knowing he was leaving. Because the exit goes one way. It goes on right past the main door that way to the left, or right past the other way down towards Baralessa and down towards Henrietta Street, towards the police station. And I was in an angle where I could see both sides of the street to make sure that he didn't escape. But that is a form of human cloning. I was actually a form of, unknown to myself, cloned. See, they only clone the people that are brilliant or they have some type of talent. Now, Al Roker, I believe, wasn't a clone. Al Roker and Shaq, I believe they have been cloned. Like Obama was cloned. The 2008 Obama, it was a lot different than the 2015 Obama. Actually, Obama died. The original Obama was dead in 2008, but then was brought back for the election through the cloning process. Now, look at look no further than the Hillary Clinton election. Hillary Clinton was having a breakdown. Why was she having a breakdown? Because her body was breaking down because the physical DNA was defective and had been manipulated so much that it was no longer actually able to function, and that they had to eventually remove her. And then what? She came back perfectly normal the following couple of weeks, or next week or something like that, and for the next event, and she was fine. Why? Because she was cloned. Somebody who's having a mental breakdown won't be good in just 1 week. It takes more than just a week to deal with a mental breakdown. Her body was physically breaking down. Now, look at Hillary Clinton's mouth. She had a palate here at the top. Why? Because she was eating human flesh. She was eating the human flesh, which causes that bump to come up on your palate there. And she is one of those people who are involved in this little elitist type of behavior. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's crazy, and this is all crazy and conspiracy. Well, the term conspiracy was coined in 1967, was to make sure that people that were telling the truth, such as myself, and report an actual news and behavior that is going on within our societies, and exposing the truth, were considered called, quote, quote, conspiracists, and were written off as either crazy, insane, or they would just it was to keep people from who were telling the truth about cloning. I guarantee if you watch the scene from Hostel that I post on this description here, you'll see that they had a roulette table where they're just and they're picking how he dies. I will also post a video from TMZ, which thank you, Mr. TMZ, for your editing, and thank you, Mr. Sting, bass guitarist, for telling the fucking truth and not being afraid of these fuckers. Because that's the thing is, they kill me, I don't care if they kill me. I will live on forever because people will remember my name. People will remember who I am and what I stood for. That is the true meaning of living on forever. Now, that's eternal life. Because people will remember you when you die. Look at Bob Marley. People still love Bob Marley today. Michael Jackson. People still love Michael Jackson to this day. You know, another example of cloning, Michael Jackson. Now that we're speaking on that subject, Michael Jackson was a clone. And why do you think I say this? Because Davy Dave. Who was Davy Dave? Davy Dave was a child who was actually burned in a fire just like Michael Jackson, very similar, a few years prior to Michael Jackson's burns for Coca-Cola. Now, it's interesting because Michael Jackson's face at that time, because he had so much grease up in his hair, no surgeon to this day could have repaired his face from the injuries burnt on his face. Now, that's not why I say he was cloned. Because everybody was a Michael Jackson impersonator at that point in time. Could have been a Michael Jackson impersonator. But here's where it gets crazy. Now, I found this video of Davy Dave. And I was doing a voice analysis on Davy Dave's voice versus Michael Jackson's voice. Now, Michael Jackson had the similar voice to Davy Dave. They were voices nearly matched. And just from listening, you could hear the similarities. And so I started doing this, watching Davy Dave speak, and he said Michael Jackson's Never Never Land was in Encino, which is in California. Encino, Encino. And so it's not in Encino. It's actually not in Never Never Land's not in Encino. That's wrong. And so I started looking at some videos of Michael Jackson when he was talking about Tommy Mottola, who owned Sony and was the owner of Sony and the records that Mr. Michael Jackson produced. Don't get me wrong, I love Michael Jackson, love his music. His music's amazing, it's inspiring. He was a great man, despite all the propaganda. I'll get into what propaganda is in another video. That's for another time, but let's get back to this, what we're talking about. Tommy Mottola was called out publicly by Michael Jackson because Michael Jackson wanted he wanted his rights to his music. He wanted the rights to his music. He wanted to own the rights, own everything that had, and he owned half the company Tommy Mottola had. That pissed off Tommy Mottola. He literally called Tommy Mottola the devil. Not saying he is the devil. What he's referring to is his devil-like behavior, his manipulative, violent, even dangerous behavior. And these CEOs conceal it. And I believe Tommy Mottola sent the doctor who took the hit Michael Jackson, accidentally killed Michael, who was not actually Michael but an impersonator of Michael, because they could never repair the real Michael, his face anyway. And then the real Michael ended up dying. And obviously the copy died. The double or the copy of the clone died as well. Michael Jackson, look at his face originally, then look at his face towards when he was getting famous, before the surgery, and then look at his face after the surgery, after he had the burns. There's no way in hell any person could have repaired his face from the burns that occurred. Now, Bernie Mac was another example of this. Now, this gets into the microchips. They put a microchip in these elitists put a microchip either in your forehead or the back of your head, on the back of your head, towards like the where it's flat, the flat part. I can't think of the actual scientific name of it, but they put a chip there. Now, Cedric the Entertainer, who I hate, Steve Harvey, D.L. Hughley, and Cedric the Entertainer killed Bernie Mac, then threatened his wife to be quiet about the murder. The reason they did this is because they did not want the cloning to get out. Now, a great example of this was Princess Diana. She sent a letter claiming Charles was planning to kill her, kill her in a car crash, which what happened? She died in a car crash, right? Just as he said, was plotting to kill her in a car crash. Bernie Mac was killed because he was going to expose the cloning. Same with Princess Diana. And we talked about Princess Diana died in 1995, not 97. And she cloned herself. The original died in 95, while the clone died in that car crash. Rest in peace, clone. And there was, we talked about the article, the Dr. Monsef Daham, who stated that it affected him deeply by her death in 95, which she didn't die until quote, quote, 97, which shows more scientific proof towards human cloning and the human cloning process. Now, if you don't believe this, I will post every single thing that I have said with proof, except for I can't prove the Bernie Mac issue, because that's going to be that will most likely get me killed. But I can prove the microchips, I can prove the evidence of the cloning of Bill Bush, Jean Christine speaking out of the side of his mouth, Al Roker's MKUltra program, the CIA bringing over Nazis in Germany, which is very well documented, and the fact that Michael Jackson was either cloned or he was having a, quote, caretaker as Tommy Mottola, as Davy Dave, and that the real Michael Jackson was still living at that time and then died later, obviously. But I can prove this behavior in these types of accusations, and that these are not just conspiracies, but actual facts. Look closely at the details, look closely at the information, and you will find cloning and human cloning is a very real thing. It very much occurs in society. Most of our celebrities, our politicians, our CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, President George Bush, President Obama, Even wrestling, they clone people. Even in music, Eminem was cloned. Jackie Chan was cloned. He has a clone in China somewhere. They sell our DNA on a black market. These things really do occur. If you watch Taken 3, now that's not about human cloning, but that's also about elitists. $1 million on that girl. That's human trafficking. These are some of the things these elitists, these violent, criminal elitists are doing to our common folks, and we do not know it, or we do not care to know it, or we do not want to know it. And I'm speaking the truth here today, and was hoping that people would enjoy this video, like, share, subscribe, and comment on this. If you like this video, subscribe and click the little click the button up top for more notifications on my video. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I am Elijah Dominguez, and this has been news from World United Press. Thank you for watching.